I'm AJ Bianco from Podcast PD, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows in the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 192 of the House of EdTech podcast, we are going to be doing the 8th annual House of EdTech Smackdown. And this episode is brought to you by Everfi. We'll have a little bit more about Everfi later on in the episode. But for now, let's strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech. My name is Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnessie.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of EdTech. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is episode 192 of the House of EdTech podcast. This is the big one. It's the final episode of 2021. And if you're anything like me, it's another year that we just can't wait to end. But here we are, final episode of the calendar year. It has been a long year. I'm actually doing something interesting right now as I'm recording this episode. I am live streaming it to Instagram. So this is something new, something different. And well, that's the kind of stuff you come to expect from me here on the podcast. So very, very excited to be doing episode 192 live on Instagram. And I'm also recording it. So there you go. This will be very exciting. I am looking forward to sharing upwards of 19 or 20. I actually didn't count them. So count along with me at home to find out what the total number was. And we should have a really good episode as we have a lot of tips, a lot of tricks. We've got some great education technology tools that are or have been shared here. I've got some recordings. Some people sent me some email messages, and I think we should get right into it. I can wax poetic at the end of the episode, and, let's do this. Let's get right into this year's Smackdown. Let's go. Let's do it. Chris, hit the button. So again, this is the 8th annual Smackdown. I want to let you know right up front that everything that I talk about and mention and that other people talk about and mention in this episode, you will be able to find in the show notes out at chrisnessie.com/192. There will also be a link on the show notes page to the Grandmaster spreadsheet started by Derek Larson that will give you a list of everything that's ever been shared on the House of EdTech Smackdown. Again, this is the 8th time I'm doing this. So again, very exciting stuff. A lot of things I'm looking forward to sharing. And we're going to get started with an email. Our first entry in the Smackdown comes to us from Camila Oliveira. And Camila says, All In Learning is a platform that looks somewhat like Plickers. If Plickers was on steroids and required zero prep and gave you tons of standards-based reports after a session. All In Learning is a platform that provides student clickers, little remotes that can be used to interact with the lesson and answer questions, but it also allows any student device that connects to the internet to become what is called a web clicker. This allows the teacher to easily engage all students in a hybrid, in-person, or fully remote setting. It integrates beautifully with web conferencing platforms such as Zoom. My favorite part, this is again according to Camila, my favorite part is that the teacher does not have to input anything into the system. The teacher simply makes 2 clicks and launches the bar and is ready to collect student responses. The teacher then clicks on the correct answers as they go, so it is appropriately called the on-the-fly feature. This also allows the teacher to pivot during lessons and can go back and build background knowledge if the students need it, or go deeper into enrichment should the students demonstrate mastery. Finally, after the session, the teacher just needs to select from a drop-down menu which standards they taught that day, and the system builds a report and tracks the standards. It is a fantastic engagement and progress monitoring tool all in one. This can save teachers hours of busy work and allows teachers to have that in-the-moment feedback that they need to correct misconceptions the moment they happen. Below, we will include links to videos. So when Camila was a teacher, she used Plickers and Kahoot as much as she could, and this is something unlike anything she has ever seen because it is a tool that actually saves the teacher time. And again, Camila has shared with us All In Learning. And again, there'll be a link to this and everything out at the show notes at chrisnessy.com/192. Next up, we have friend of the podcast, Stephanie Howell. Take it away, Stephanie.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for always putting on this EdTech Smackdown. It's something I really look forward to. And what I wanted to share is a this or that choice board. So a normal choice board typically has 6 to 9 different boxes on it, and it can really overwhelm or cause some cognitive load on our students. And so sometimes I've had students just sit there and they won't actually do anything because they're just staring at all the different choices. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard on that. It looks awesome. And so I've started to move towards a this or that type of choice board. And I put an example down in the speaker notes. But what this choice board can do is your students have maybe 8 different choices, but they only have 2 in each category. So you as a teacher lay out kind of, okay, what do I want my students to focus on? What is this learning that I want them to do? And so maybe I focus it maybe with the HyperDoc type of activities where I use engage, explore, like the 5 E's or some type of model to help set it up. But maybe I want to first have my students explore. Well, they can explore by maybe creating an infographic of information that they're learning, or they could watch a video to explore the new information that's coming. Then the next activity I might want them to do is read. So I want them to read, but I might have them read this article over here, or maybe an article like on Newsella or something like that. So again, it's taking up all these different choices and putting them in smaller categories so they still have a choice and they can use their voice to kind of do some of these. Maybe there's a creation part and they get, again, 2 different choices where they might create like a podcast, or your students could maybe create like a video. So again, they get to choose what activity they want to do, but they're not overwhelmed by all the 9 boxes. If you need any help with these, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Mrs. Howe24, and my name is Stephanie Howe.
Thank you, Stephanie. And if you're not familiar with Stephanie Howell on Twitter, you've got to go connect with her. I would say that this fall, here in the fall of 2021, she has really done a lot to basically change the game when it comes to choice boards. And her this or that choice board concept is very popular. And of course, I will include links to the resources for her this or that choice boards out at chrisnessy.com/192. Next up, we have Belle Hughes. And Belle is actually the first of a number of pre-service educators. Thank you to Dr. Sam Fessich for advertising the Smackdown to your college students who aspire to be teachers. So we have a number of students from where Sam Fessich teaches teachers. So first up, we have Belle Hughes. Take it away, Belle.
Hi, my name is Belle Hughes, and I have loved EdTech. I love getting to learn about each tool from both perspectives of the teacher and the student, including some tools like Lumio and Classkick and all those fun things, and I'm super excited to use them in my future classroom.
And let me tell you, Belle, when you get that classroom one day in the future, your students are going to love to use some of these EdTech tools. So hopefully you're listening to this and taking notes, which is going to be awesome. And again, she mentioned Lumio, which is by Smart, you know, that company that makes the smart boards. So Lumio by Smart, and also Classkick. Thank you, Belle. Next up, we have an email texty message from Abby Berk, who I believe is also one of Dr. Sam Fessage's students. And Abby says, quote, "Hey there, thought I would share my favorite EdTech tool from this semester. I have absolutely loved using Lumio. This program is such a fun, easy way that keeps students engaged in learning. It has so many cool features like inserting games and also idea boards." I think Dr. Sam Fessage has a smartboard in her collegiate classroom, so kids are getting exposed to the touchscreen technology, and it's also nice to see that these students also get to get up and touch it, which, if you have an interactive display in your classroom and you're the only one who's touching it, that's a problem. COVID or no COVID, wipe the thing down with some sort of cleansing thing. So, yeah, thank you to Abby, and Lumio seems to be pretty popular. Not that I'm keeping score. Next up, we've got a text message from Clark Fraser, and Clark says, "My favorite tool that I've learned about this year has to be Weebly. I've loved learning how to make my own website and to customize it how I want." Clark, as somebody who wants to be a teacher, you definitely want to have your own website, and having a place where parents can connect with you and your students can kind of get a hub of information, it's a great way to go. And Weebly is certainly a powerful platform that can help you build, at your stage of this game, your teaching portfolio, where you can show off work that you've done and how you have prepped to become a teacher. So far we are off to a rockin' start here on the 8th annual House of EdTech Smackdown. Again, everything that we talk about today is going to be out in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/192. Next up, we've got audio from Megan and Alyssa. Take it away, ladies.
My favorite EdTech tool is Quizizz because it has great interactive games and fun power-ups.
My favorite tech tool is Google Forms because it automatically grades and offers instant feedback to students.
Thank you, ladies. And I apologize, you didn't identify yourselves in the clip, so I have no idea which one is Megan and which one was Alyssa. Only they know who they are. But they recommend Quizizz and Google Forms because, yeah, they are powerful tools. And again, whether you're a new teacher or you are a veteran educator, both tools should be a part of your EdTech toolkit. Next up, we have audio from Hayley Dietz. Take it away, Hayley.
Hello, my name's Hayley Dietz. I'm a current student at Grove City College, and one of my favorite EdTech tools that I have learned through this year is Blooket, which is a really, really cool tool that allows students to play games, and it also lets you create just a certain type of content, but lets you play multiple different games, which is really cool, so that they can go over the content without getting too bored of playing one game multiple times. It's one of my favorite things that I've learned throughout this year.
Thank you for submitting that, Hayley. And yeah, Blooket definitely got a lot of love during pandemic times and certainly should continue to get a lot of love as we continue to move forward with whatever education is going to look like. Next up, we have audio from Savannah. Take it away, Savannah.
Hi, I'm Savannah Remenaric, and I've loved EdTech this year because I found so many new ways to implement technology into my future classroom. I've gained so many ideas and learned about tools that I never knew existed. One of my favorite EdTech tools is Bitmoji Classroom because you can create your very own virtual classroom with loads of resources for your students to access in just one place.
Thank you for sharing that, Savannah. Now, I will say, and I'm not saying this to poo-poo your idea, but let me caution you and all those who use the idea of the Bitmoji Classroom. And just remember that, internet, bandwidth and speed, maybe for us at home is a luxury, and maybe our students aren't always afforded that same luxury in terms of being able to download things or have really high-speed internet access. So just be careful when you are having them access things like, and basically a Bitmoji Classroom is a Google slide that is very decorated and very graphically and visually pleasing. But just remember that these things take time to load and view. So just be cautious when you create these. So maybe you're not overwhelming your students on maybe their particular, either their personal devices or their district issued devices when it comes to downloading and accessing and having things load and play and different things like that. But certainly the idea is there to have something visually pleasing when you are having students look at something like a Bitmoji classroom. Next up, we've got a text message from Patrick Stalter. And Patrick says, quote, "My favorite EdTech tool is Google Forms because it is very versatile. It is a great tool for assessment and communication, and it is very easy to navigate. It is also very easy to create." Patrick, couldn't agree with you more. Google Forms is truly a powerful tool to collect information, whether you are giving assessments or collecting information from students or parents, your community. It is a wonderful tool, and they're also adding great features all the time, to be able to insert pictures, upload photos, add video. So there is just so much that you can do with a Google form. And let's pause right here for a word from this episode's sponsor, EverFi. If you need standards-aligned digital resources to teach real-world topics like financial literacy, career skills of the future, leadership, digital citizenship, or social-emotional learning, then EverFi has a resource for you. This past school year, EverFi had over 72,000 active courses with 4.8 million student enrollments. These digital resources are free to K-12 schools, so every teacher has access to them, no matter your classroom setting. Lessons are self-paced for students, and you can monitor students' auto-graded and pre- and post-assessment scores right from the teacher dashboard. From sports to banking, you will find a topic with a real-world angle that your students will love. And with the holiday spending season upon us, now is a great time to equip students with the skills needed to make savvy financial decisions. Ready to give your students a jumpstart on their future? Go to chrisnessy.com/everfi. And when you do, sign up to get a virtual swag bag full of free goodies and check out the show notes for the links. Once again, go to chrisnessy.com/everfi. That's EVERFI. And now, back to the show. All right, as we resume this 2021, the 8th annual House of EdTech Smackdown, I want to remind you once again that everything that we talk about in this episode is going to be listed and linked out in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/192. Now let's take up the second half of the Smackdown, and we've got some text, a message from Jacob Vannoy, and Jacob says, quote, "My favorite EdTech tool is Google Forms because I have a special connection with it. I use it to create a reel on Instagram with guys in my class." So I guess Jacob is able to collect information through the Google form and turn that information, what he collects, into a video, which he can then post on Instagram Reels. So thank you, Jacob. Next up, we have Ryan Gibson, and take it away, Ryan.
Hi, this is Ryan Gibson. My favorite ed tech tool is Google Forms because of all the different question options that you have and just the ability to do kind of whatever you want with it.
Hello, this is Mally Kilbane. I also like Google Form. It is easy to use, and it is a great way to assess students, whether it is formative or summative.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. And the second guy kind of snuck in there at the end. I didn't realize there was two guys in that clip. Oh, well, I mean, that's great. Thank you, guys. Next up, we have, and I think I could safely say this, veteran podcaster Bryon Carpenter, who in 2021, I helped Bryon launch his podcast, the Fresh Air at 5 podcast. And Bryon, earlier this fall, crossed the 50 episode mark. If you're not subscribed to Bryon Carpenter's Fresh Air at 5 podcast, you have to do that. It's a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, and Bryon does a great job. And it's almost like what he sent in is like an episode of his podcast because he does it literally while he is getting some fresh air walking at 5 a.m. So this is Bryon Carpenter from the Fresh Air at 5 podcast. Take it away, Bryon.
Hey there, this is Bryon Carpenter for the Edtech Smackdown 2021 on the House of Edtech. And Chris, I want to bring to our community 3 Chrome extensions that have made a difference for me in my workspace and efficiency. So, people, I'm talking in Chrome, the browser, and how you can get extensions that can give your browser superpowers. So the first extension that I have that has made a difference for me is called the Momentum Dashboard, or Momentum. And you can go find it by typing in Momentum. It has to do with providing a dashboard within your Chrome browser home screen that brings you a positive message. It brings you a to-do list. It brings you a fantastic picture every day. And it brings you, ways of having your links and countdowns and things. And you know what? For myself, I was a free guy for a long time. But even just last week, I went and purchased Momentum, the Pro version, to get a few more features that has calming sounds. So like in your browser, you can just play calm sounds and have noise in the background of like waterfalls or, the wind or the river flowing, things like that. Okay, so that's one. The second one is called Extensify and Extensity, and it is a Chrome extension manager that allows you to see all your Chrome extensions in one spot, because if you're like me, you have more than the 10 that'll fit in the top of the Chrome browser on the top right. Okay, and the third one is called Clipboard History Pro, and Clipboard History Pro is a way of having a record of your clipboards, your Control C's that you press on your keyboard, so that you can go back to them in the future, have more than one Control C. There's many times that I just go Control C and then I go to go paste it, but in the middle I get distracted and I press Control C again. By the time I get to where I want to go, it's gone. So Clipboard History Pro. So 3 extensions. We got the Momentum Dashboard, we have Extensity, the Chrome extension manager, and we have Clipboard History Pro. Thanks all. Happy Christmas. Bye.
Thank you, Bryon, and happy Christmas to you as well. And here's to the next 50 episodes of the Fresh Air at 5. And thank you for sharing all of those great Chrome extensions. Next up, we have Cameron Ross, who I believe was watching on the Instagram live that I'm doing right now as I record this episode. Real quick, I do want to shout out, why not? I want to shout out those that have kind of checked in on Instagram here. So I believe that Cameron checked in, and he's on Instagram as Rossman SICT, Dr. Dan Krynas, who has returned to podcasting with the Leader of Learning podcast. He's at Dr._Krynas on Instagram. And we've got Hey Mrs. Danny, that's DANI. Winston Sakurai joined us on Twitter. Pam 21st21ST joined on Twitter. I'm so used to doing stuff on Twitter. Jeez Louise. Joined on Instagram. Hello to JD Prickett, who also checked us out on Instagram, and also to a former colleague of mine, Chris Zalma, Chris_Zalma_519, also checking out the live stream on Instagram, which maybe I'll do more of in 2022, because I think this is pretty easy. Somebody's dropping hearts here. I can't even tell, but the people seem to like it. So thank you for checking it out on Instagram. And if you're not following the House of EdTech on Instagram and you're listening to the podcast right now, follow on Instagram at House of EdTech. You never know when I'm going to pop up. Anyway, back to the Smackdown, and let's send it over to Cameron Ross.
Hi, Chris. It's Cameron from Melbourne, Australia. In regards to the 2021 House of EdTech Smackdown, I'm nominating Mote. It's a brilliant audio feedback tool that allows you to provide audio feedback in a range of different Google platforms, including Sheets, Slides, and Forms. But for me, the best part about it is being able to provide audio tips and using on different websites, and being able to provide that instant feedback that students can get access to. Keep up the great work, Chris. Thanks.
Cameron, thank you. And you mentioned Mote, and how did he send me his audio? He created a Mote note. He created a Mote and he sent me the Mote. So I played it here on the podcast. Mote is super powerful, super fun. It works in Google Forms. It works in Google Classroom. And as we just demonstrated, you could just make one and send it wherever you want, and people can get your voice message through Mote, M-O-T-E. So, very good. On we go. Let's go to Carlos Garza. You might know him better as Mr. G. Take it away, Mr. G.
Hello, House of EdTech, and hello, Mr. Nessie. This is Mr. G. I wanted to share my Google Innovator project called GRTF, from plain text to rich text formatting. This is a Chrome extension. The original idea was to help educators with Google Forms by emphasizing key ideas for better reading and easier understanding. However, this works across multiple platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and other non-RTF text areas where Unicode text is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. G. Always a pleasure to hear your voice, and thank you for supporting the House of EdTech and contributing what sounds like an awesome Google Innovator project, which I will link out to his Chrome extension, the one he is building to do some rich text formatting, and that'll be out in the show notes at chrisnessie.com/192. Next up, we have new friend of the podcast this year, who I originally met through Clubhouse earlier in 2021, and he is the host of the 9th Grade Experience podcast. Take it away, Chris Stuchko.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Stuchko. I am the host of a, quote, fantastic little podcast called the 9th Grade Experience. That is a callback to episode 189 of the House of EdTech, when Chris on the show talked about my podcast when I submitted a little bit of the Thanksgiving, what I'm thankful for episode. So thanks, Chris, for the shout out there. So what is my EdTech Smackdown tip of the year? Now, you would expect it to be something really big and fancy, but I'm going to go old school, and I looked through the list, and I didn't see it mentioned only once. I'm going to say YouTube, and you're going to be like, YouTube, of all the things that can be used. Well, as a podcaster, I have found this year that students in high school especially are accessing my podcast through YouTube. And I think it's a great example of finding where we can meet students where they are. I have an audio podcast. I think a lot of adults listen to it, but I don't think kids are really listening to audio. So in this past year, I've pivoted to using more video and doing things on YouTube. And I have found that engagement is a lot higher. So this year, I'm going to focus a lot more on trying to produce video content and putting things onto YouTube. So that's my EdTech Smackdown recommendation, is to use YouTube to reach your students. I know a lot of people talk about social media and all those spots too, but just go into old school video sometimes is the best way to do it. So thanks a lot, Chris, for including me on this episode. And thanks a lot. Have a great year, everybody.
Thank you for sending that in, Chris. And yeah, sometimes it's these classic things that, kind of take us by surprise. So, here we have Chris who, is hosting his podcast and, meeting his students where they are when it comes to his podcast. And certainly YouTube is a very, very valuable tool. In case you didn't know, it is the second most popular search engine on the planet we call Earth. So thank you to Chris for submitting. See, that's funny. Regular old YouTube. Again, still super powerful, and there's nothing normal about it. It is a fantastic tool for learning and growing and sharing. So thank you, Chris, for submitting YouTube. Next up, I feel like this is the portion of the episode where I'm just going to refer to people who I met on Clubhouse this year, which has been super powerful. And if you're not on Clubhouse, certainly consider getting onto Clubhouse and meeting and connecting with people and using the power of voice. So next up, a guy who I also met through Clubhouse, and that would be, you know what? I am misspeaking. I did not meet Ryan through Clubhouse, but I got him onto Clubhouse. So I think Clubhouse is one of the places where I first heard Ryan's voice. But take it away, Ryan.
Chris, Ryan Gutsch from Owen Withy Schools in Wisconsin. No podcast yet. I'm still trying to reorganize my life to get time to do that. But avid listener, and I got a system of things that I've been using over the past 2 years here that I've really enjoyed in terms of EdTech. First of all, my daily agenda is in Google Slides. Every link, every video, anything I ever want them to have access to is available in the slide. I don't even have a deck. It's just one slide. It's just always up there, published, so I can click on links whenever I need to in class. I put that slide, or the published link of the slide, into my Google Classroom. I post them each day, so anyone that may have missed class, they can just go right there and see exactly what the plan was for the day, any links they need to check out, any videos they should check out. It's all right there. And then using Planboard, planboard.chalk.com, was super, and kind of figured out my entire semester. And I even put a few days of buffer at the end of the year, so when random things like come up, assemblies or days off for snow days, whatever the case may be, I had that space that I could adjust things down, just move a lesson over a day, and things worked out really, really nice that way. This makes it so everything that I need is accessible anywhere I go. I can work at school, I can work at home, I can work at my in-laws during the holidays. Whenever I need to do something, I have access to everything I need. So those would be my recommendations. It's simple, it's not fancy apps, but it makes things really, really nice for me to work with and do everything I need to do. Thanks for the show. Bye.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you sending that in. And certainly the idea of using Google Slides, again, it's like a pocket knife of EdTech, what you can do with Google Slides. And really, that's what we can say a lot about the many Google tools that are out there. And certainly chalk.com and what you can do with Planboard over on chalk.com is also valuable as well. Next up, we got some text from Linda Hummer. She is at Linda Hummer over on Twitter. And here's what Linda sent us. Quote, I've been working with 4th grade students on animation using Google Slides. I am a K4 tech teacher. They will be using their skills in science to create an animation on Earth changes, like volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunami, etc. Once they finish their show, they will publish it to the web, so it advances every second and then it loops. They also hack the URL, changing the timing from 1000 to 200 so it moves faster. Then they use Screencastify to record the animation and do a voiceover telling how the earth change process occurs. They post their Screencastify link to a spreadsheet. The science teacher can then play them from there and also grade them when they have the chance to. Linda also goes on to say, I love integrating what they learn with me into their classrooms. I have tech with them for 40 minutes once a week. I have been truly amazed at the skills they gain in the 5 years that she has them. So thank you to Linda for sharing that little hack and using Google Slides for animation. Super, super exciting stuff. And thank you to Linda for contributing to the 2021 House of EdTech Smackdown. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to multi-time guest of the podcast, Nate Nagel. And Nate submitted a bunch of things. So take it away, Nate, for the Nate portion of the show.
Hey, Chris, Nate Nagel here, and I just wanted to give you a quick thing for the House of EdTech Smackdown. This is an oldie but a goodie, but something I've used a lot in the past year. It's really helped me out. Inside a Google Doc, if I'm doing something where I need students to answer questions, what I do is I change the background color by going to File and Page Setup. You can set a custom background color there. And then from that point, what I do is I have the question in black text, and I'll insert a table with a white background, and that's where I can look for the answers. Visually, it's a lot easier for me to see if students answered the questions. It's also easier for them to find out where they need to put the responses. I hope that helps.
I think it definitely helps. And the idea, I remember back in the day when I was learning computers, where I think it was like MS-DOS, and like you typed, it was just white text on a blue screen, and that's how you wrote stuff down. I remember doing that as a young boy in the mid 90s. But I never thought myself to change the color in a document that I shared out to kids. So thank you for that tip. And that's given me something to think about, Nate. And Nate has more that he wants us to think about. So Nate, continue.
Hey, Chris, it's Nate Nagel here again. I just wanted to give another suggestion for the Smackdown. This one deals with Google Slides. Again, I've been using a lot of Google stuff this year, and this is just the tool that's helped me. And it's called Theme Builder. Basically, what it does is it's like a master slide. It's the main thing that controls all of the other things. So basically, if you put a page number on this one, that page number is going to show up on all of the subsequent slides that are attached. And the cool thing about this is they're not editable. So I usually put directions or graph paper or something that I need to do with my students. I'll put that on the master slide, and then my students can't accidentally delete the text box. They can't change it. They can't do things with it because it's locked down. Now, if they're really smart, they can go into the theme builder and get rid of it. But that shows me that they purposely circumvented the system as opposed to accidentally deleting something. So that's one of my favorite things I've used this year, because it's just, again, helped me be able to use Google Slides more effectively and have my students not experience any problems with them.
And Nate is very thorough. He's got more to say about that. Go ahead. What do you got?
And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention with the theme builder where to find it. All you need to do is go to View and then click on Theme Builder. And they have a master theme where it's going to control everything on all of the templates, or they have the different layouts and you can control exactly what's on an individual layout. So maybe there's a layout that you don't use very often. Maybe you want to put your directions on that one and not influence the rest of the slideshow. It's a really easy, powerful tool that, again, stops students from changing things, deleting things, or just clears up any confusion that there might exist when you create a Google slide.
Thank you for clearing that up, Nate, and letting us know how to get into the theme builder part of Google Slides. And he has one more thing. So go ahead, Nate. What's the last thing you want to share for 2021?
Hey, Chris. Sorry, I'm back again for one more thing here that just popped in my brain, and I wanted to share it with you and your audience. I've been using Canvas as my primary LMS this year, and I've also, in the past year or two, really started to rely on color as an indicator of different things. So when my students see a blue heading, they know that it means something. If they see yellow, it means it's something they really have to pay attention to. If they see a reddish orange kind of color, that means there's the assignment. And I've been using color to kind of try to differentiate the sections of a lesson, to figure out where different things are at, and just going through and really completing them all. In conjunction with this, I'll also use emojis in the title of the lesson so that there's an icon associated with things. It's easier to see than Canvas ones, and this can be done in Google Classroom and Canvas, which are the two LMSs I have experience with. And it just makes things a little bit visually nicer, but also gives meaning behind the visual indication. It's not just pretty for a reason. It looks that way for a reason. And when I have my students understand what it's for, they can quickly find the information they need because they know where they need to pay attention to things, where there's something super important, or where they can find the assignment at.
Awesome. Love it. I kind of got into that a little bit in Google Classroom last year and into this year by going out to any one of a number of like hundreds of websites that let you copy and paste funky fonts, is what I'll say. And I think I recommended one earlier this year. If I remember to dig it up, I will include it in the show notes. But using what I will call fun fonts in Google Classroom for topic headings in the classwork area, and certainly incorporating emojis as well. Emojis, super fun, super powerful. Love them. And thank you, Nate, for contributing to this year's Smackdown. And we have one more entry in the 2021 House of EdTech Smackdown, and we're going to turn it over to one of my awesome supporters, Anthony Arnaud. Take it away, Ant.
Hello, Chris Nessie and the House of EdTech podcast. This is Anthony Arnaud, creator of the STEM Class podcast, where I interview authors, teachers, and pioneers in the world of STEM. Our latest episode features Biosphere 2, a futuristic 1990 space dome where 8 humans were sealed into a 3-acre closed container for 2 years. Was it an experiment or a $200 million failed space colony? My favorite EdTech app? Well, there's many, and I can't imagine living without them. From Adobe Spark to WeVideo. I mean, I use Evernote, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Seesaw, Padlet, Canvas, and Canva as a teacher on almost a weekly basis. But there's not a single app that excites the kids more than Kahoot. And I use it as the carrot stick to get through my lessons and activities. Whether you're creating an activity or searching on Kahoot for their library for ready-made games, it's a real winner. Chris, thank you for all the time you put into the show. I know it's a ton of work and always part of my Monday morning routine when the latest episodes have been released. Happy holidays to you and your listeners at the House of EdTech.
Happy holidays to you as well, Anthony. Thank you so much for submitting and contributing to the House of EdTech Smackdown. And next up, we are going sort of down under to the very worldly friend of the podcast, Mel A.
Hi there. So a couple of tools that I think that are pretty epic are Blooket. So Blooket.com, you can go there, check it out. It's like Kahoot, but way cooler. Kids that were super disengaged originally, when they found out about Blooket, when I first did it with them, they were so obsessed. They got super excited and really engaged it because it's all about, like, it's luck. You still need to get questions right, but your score depends on how lucky you are. Whether you guess to have, like, awesome gold, like triple gold, or you get to steal from someone, or you lose like 50% of your gold. So it was something that was super engaging for them. And Desmos has been really cool, like amazing investigative style activities. Doesn't have to be just for maths, can be for any subject really. So yeah, those are a couple that I think that are epic. And of course I'm using Mote right now, and I know that everyone really knows about it, but yeah, it's been cool. I put that in my daily agendas. The kids can always click on my little voice thingo to hear what I have to say, and it's been really important since I haven't been around for a long time due to medical leave. So yeah, anyway, so there you go for now.
Thank you so much, Mel. We've got another vote for Blooket. Desmos, which is a fantastic math tool, and I'm familiar with Desmos because of Bowtie Joe Juba, former guest of the podcast and colleague, and of course another entry for Mote, which Mel A. used to submit her submission. So thank you again, Mel A. And that's going to do it. That's the Smackdown. Once again, everything that was mentioned in this episode will be out in the show notes. You can get there by going to my website, and that would be chrisnessy.com. And if you, at the end of that, put a little slash and the number 192, that'll bring you to the show notes for this episode. So chrisnessy.com/192. Now, let's talk about this episode's House of Ed Tech VIP. Well, this is the Smackdown episode, the last episode of the calendar year for the House of Ed Tech podcast, which means you are the House of Ed Tech VIP. You work hard each and every day in your role in education. You continue to inspire children, adults, families, the community that you live in, the community that you work in. You are doing an amazing job. Yes, there are aspects of life and this profession that are not easy. And that's when things aren't COVID and pandemic related. But regardless of that, in spite of that, or maybe because of that, you are amazing and you are doing the best you can. And for that, you are a House of Ed Tech VIP. Thank you for listening to this episode of the House of Ed Tech podcast. If you're not subscribed or following, I hope that this episode has inspired you to continue to make this podcast a part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. Thank you again to each and every person who took the time to contribute to this year's Smackdown. Rest assured, there will be a 9th annual Smackdown, and that's going to come your way in December of 2022. I don't have the date in front of me. But let's keep the conversation going. I want you to share your thoughts on this episode or whatever is on your mind as it relates to education and technology. If you want to leave a comment, go to chrisnessy.com/192. If you want to send an email, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. Or if you'd like to send a voicemail, go to chrisnessy.com/voicemail. The lines of communication are always open here at the House of Ed Tech, and I welcome your feedback whenever you have it. If you enjoy the House of Ed Tech, and hey, if you're listening at this point, you must be a big fan of the podcast. So again, thank you. And the best thing you can do is tell somebody else about the podcast. Word of mouth is the best way to share a podcast that you love. Or even if it's just one that you like. If you just like the House of Ed Tech, that's still worth telling somebody else about the show. You can also become an awesome supporter of the podcast. I am very thankful for the ongoing financial support from the following people. Thank you to Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher, Carlos Garza, Peggy George, Jeff Herb, Mike Messner, Matt Miller, JP Presevento, Patty Reefus, Lori Simpson, and Kyle Wilcox. If you're getting value from this podcast, you can become an awesome supporter. Go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The Awesome Supporter Program is powered by patreon.com, which allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. Also, want to thank once again this episode's sponsor, Everfi. For more information about Everfi, go to chrisnessy.com/Everfi. The next episode of the podcast is going to be episode 193, and year 9 of the House of EdTech will begin on January 16th, 2022. Until next time, happy holidays, happy new year, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.